Let me go ahead and get my ducks in a row here. We're going to dive into the training. Okay, again, we're going to be talking about the three types of people, your three best friends or types of best friends in the federal market. Let me just find my deck and we're off to the races. So again, these are the three types of people. You want to find all three of these as it relates to sales, whether it's business development, capture, or even when you're doing execution of a contract, you want to be paying attention to these three types of people. So keep that in mind. These folks are always in your world. They just might shift who they are. I feel like a lot of us, even like that example I just gave at the beginning of this training here, sometimes run into gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are not good. Like the very fact that they're called gatekeepers, anybody who thinks calling themselves or us calling you a gatekeeper is good, it's not. Those people are there to block entry to everybody but a select few. And that's not what we're looking for. I don't care what they're looking for, right? But we don't like the idea of a gatekeeper. What we're looking for is somebody who's going to get us into an agency, right? And get us navigating around that agency, et cetera. We'll talk about that. And so as you move forward thinking about today's training, I'm going to be trying to point out different people who can help you avoid the gatekeeper syndrome, that challenge that we run into where you get the meeting or the call and then it goes nowhere and you feel like, man, I'm just blocked at the gate. Am I allowed to go around to the backyard or through the windows? No, I said you can't come in. And so gatekeepers sometimes are these power people that they forget that their job is supposed to enable conversation between agency and industry type thing, right? So as I move forward in the training, I'm going to talk about these three types of people, but I want to point out another training that I did that talks about how do you get around gatekeepers. Sometimes you try to go through this door and it's blocked, but there's 20 other doors. And then this other training I've done, and in fact, it had a handout with it as well. So it labeled basically all the other doors you could use to get into the agency that you want to get into. So we're going to go through that. But today I want to talk about these type of people who can help you succeed in the federal market. So the first ones are going to be focuses of receptivity. The second one's focus of dissatisfaction, and third ones are focuses of power. These are the three types of people you want to meet when you're doing sales, when you're working with customers in the federal market. And I'm going to talk about each one of them as we go forward. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. So the first group of people I want to talk to you about are the focuses of receptivity, or FRs is what we call them for short, right? So focuses of receptivity, these people are super nice, but they generally don't have that much influence within the agency, and they generally don't have that much influence to a particular opportunity. Keep in mind when I say this stuff, I'm saying generally. Sometimes somebody might have a lot of influence. I actually know people who are focuses of receptivity, but they also are very influential to your success if you would start talking to them. But generally, they lack a lot of influence. But what they do have in abundance is a willingness to listen. You know, we say listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen in proportion. They're kind of like 10 ears and 1 mouth. They will listen to you and try to understand what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to uncover about their agency, and they'll begin to answer questions for you. If you understand the 7-step process that I teach, it begins with research, right? The very first step of the 7-step process for federal revenue success is research. And when you're talking to focuses of receptivity, that's what you're looking for. A big part of what you're trying to get from them is answers to questions that, you know, it could be a question like, hey, do you know who this person is? But it also could be, do you know what the top challenges are in the agency? Do you know which office buys what I sell? Things like that. You can ask them, and because they're so willing to listen to you and so willing to try to help you, they'll move forward. Down below, you'll see who some of these roles are, but some of these people, when you find the right ones, they operate not just as a focus of receptivity to you, but kind of like this focus of receptivity for the internal user as well, or internal customers. They want to connect people together. And so you can think of focuses of receptivity also as a connector, right? They like connecting people. And so you're the industry, and if they can help connect you with somebody inside, that's a win. They're not doing it for their own pride and sense of satisfaction or something. They're doing it not just to help you, which they definitely want to do, but also to help their internal customers. So when you think about a focus or receptivity, think about, their basic purposes in our activity, right? What's their purpose? What's their value to what we're trying to do as salespeople? And so one thing is to share information. I talked about this already about, do you know who does this, or what are some of the challenges? But I'll give you another example of somebody, a person in our workshop today just was telling us in our weekly meeting with them is that they were interacting with a focus or receptivity, in this case, small business specialist, right? And the small business specialist shared a bunch of expiring contracts that related to what they were doing. And they looked at them and said, these three are the ones that really fit us. And they had another meeting with small business specialists, and they said, okay, let me help put you in touch with some of the information from the previous contract so you can do your homework. And then I'll put you in touch with the program office people who were looking at the recompete going out, right? They're not doing anything special. They would be willing to help any small business, but you've got to reach out and develop these relationships with focuses or receptivity. And so that's that sharing of information, let's say about expiring contracts and recompetes that are coming up. Another major purpose you look for from a focus of receptivity is their willingness and capability to be able to make introductions. You want them to introduce you to focuses of dissatisfaction and focuses of power. These are other people that are influential to your sales success within a federal agency. And so focuses of receptivity are going to do that. This is how you can measure whether a person you're talking to is a good, if you said cold, warm, and hot, for how well they are towards your goals as a focus of receptivity. Their willingness, first off, they have to agree to do it. Things like, let me give you the person's point of contact information. Let me make a phone call. Let me send an email. I've been in meetings with somebody where they're like, hold on a second. They pick up the phone. It's like, hey, Janie, we got this person. Would you mind meeting with it? Can I just forward their information to you and you guys schedule a meeting? Great. Thanks, Janie. And they hang up, right? There's people at that level, and you've got to interact and find enough focuses or receptivity to be able to find those type of people. But when you do, those are hot focuses or receptivity. And that's them bringing their value to your sales efforts are those introductions. So quick examples of focuses or receptivity. In a federal agency, it almost always begins with the small business specialist. There certainly could be other people. The OSBU shop, right? One of the things I say is don't bother calling the OSBU shop when you're trying to go after opportunities and capture, because they're so far away from the opportunity, right? Generally, especially the bigger the agency, the small business specialist is the one who is kind of supporting the acquisition shop on identifying industry, et cetera. And so you want to find them. But when you think about focuses or receptivity, you can look at the small business specialist, but also go all the way up to the OSDBU, right? There's a guy, Calvin, I think his name's Calvin Mitchell, and I feel bad, I don't know, from the Department of Education. But I was just watching a session that he had done, and he was like, look, I want people to reach out to me. I want to build the supplier base for the Department of Education. So reach out to me. I will help make sure you get in touch with the right people, and probably people in his small business profession, right? So that's the next level of introductions. But finding those people, the small business professionals, OSBU, small business specialists, et cetera, perfect focuses of receptivity. By the way, that same example I gave a minute ago about a small business specialist helping one of my customers move forward, right before he told me that story and how great it was, he said, you know what? I try to call a lot of those small business professionals and I don't get any kind of traction. And I gave him guidance on like how he can start getting a lot more traction, right? But then he goes, come to think of it, I was like, oh, okay. Well, so keep in mind, some will be helpful, some won't be helpful. That's okay. Just focus your energy on the ones who are helpful. Okay, so large primes, the equivalent of a small business professional or specialist within the agencies are the small business liaison officers. These people are literally what they sound like, right? Liaison, they liaise between industry, and especially small business industry, and internal customers. So an example is Boeing has 14,000 internal buyers. They have a pretty decent sized SBLO team of people. And so as you begin to get to know them, they can teach you about maybe different divisions in Boeing that would be a fit for what you sell, et cetera. And as you move past that, they can make those introductions. So they can share information and then make introductions. They're great ones to keep in mind. By the way, these small business specialists in the agencies, these small business liaison officers, we keep a full list of them in the in our July directory of small business specialists. I'll show it to you in a minute on a slide, but if you haven't downloaded that directory, definitely do that. I think I'm ready for the weekend. My eye is kind of twitching on me a little. All right, so the last group of focuses are receptivity, because you want to go after agencies, large primes and smalls. In small businesses, it's literally anyone. Anyone you can talk to in a small business is a focus of receptivity. They'll talk to you and share information, and then they'll introduce you to leadership or the owner of the company, et cetera. And we'll talk more about that as we move on to focuses of dissatisfaction. So the focuses of dissatisfaction, when you think capture in particular, they're the ones that have the problem and the challenges, the pain points. When we teach people about doing capture management, we want you to look at an opportunity and then look at the program office, the agency, the customer, and go, well, what pain points do they have? What challenges and problems are they running into? And so these people, these focuses of dissatisfaction, they have those problems and challenges. They also have the goals and objectives. What I describe it as is they have problems, things that are going wrong. They have dissatisfactions, things they were wishing would go better, right? And then they have goals, things they want to add on. And so if you think about a recompete, they might have some dissatisfaction a little bit with how the contract was performed or what they were able to accomplish during that period of performance, and no fault of the contractor. Maybe they just didn't get done what they want. That's a dissatisfaction. And then they look at the next recompete the next 5 years, go, we really want to kind of shore up on this. Plus they might say, hey, artificial intelligence has popped up. What are my goals and objectives to implement AI and emerging technology into what I'm doing? So when you think about a focus of dissatisfaction, that's pretty much describing them, right? The purpose as it relates to the sale, as whoever's in this training, most of you are small businesses trying to sell into the federal government. The focuses of dissatisfaction are the ones who have those problems, right? And so we want to intensify it. We want to intensify the dissatisfaction that with the way the contract was running. We want to intensify the goals and the importance of the goals that they have, both stated in any kind of documentation, but also through conversations we're going to have with them. What other needs do you have? What other problems do you have? Our job is to kind of spin that up. In one of the trainings I've done, I've described it as turning implied needs into explicit needs. And so if I have a car and my brakes are kind of squeaking, then I have an implied need that my brakes must be repaired or replaced, right? That's an implied need from the squeaking. I'm like, and it doesn't stop as fast as it used to do. But if I hit the brakes and I keep on going through the stop sign, now I have an explicit need, right? And our job is to turn some of these soft things. Brakes are very tangible, right? They're either solidly working, solidly not working or on their way down. But soft needs, this idea of trying to improve the speed of time to deliver something to a customer, things like that, those are a little harder. And so your job as salespeople is intensify that dissatisfaction, intensify the need or the desire for what that outcome is. You're trying to turn things into explicit needs because that's what your products and services can solve. Another major purpose of a focus of dissatisfaction in the sales process is you want them to be able to influence the focus of power. And one quick example that I can give is if the focuses of dissatisfaction are typically the program office, like you can see here on my slide, if they're the program office personnel, the focus is power or the contracting shop. And so you want to be able to teach, and this is what we can do in sales. And you can watch a lot of my training where I teach you how to teach. How do you teach a focus of dissatisfaction, a program office person, to influence the contracting shop? One really specific example is, I'm trying to use one everybody might know, but let's just use ISO certifications. So there's an ISO certification out there that everybody might have, 27001 or whatever it is, right? But we all should be familiar with ISO certifications. If you're not, you want to begin to understand what are the typical certifications within the federal market. So when you talk with the program office or the focus of dissatisfaction, you can influence them and teach them on why that ISO certification is not really needed for this project. Or if you have that certification, you can teach them on how to communicate upstream to the contracting shop that, look, we really want to have a vendor that has ISO certifications. In fact, we want a vendor to have ISO certifications and then show us how on a monthly basis they are maintaining compliance with that ISO certification they have. So, this idea of influencing the focus of power, focuses of dissatisfaction are the people with the need. The focuses of power are going to listen to these people. They are key influencers to the focuses of power. And so you want to be able to train them. Typical examples of focuses of power, of dissatisfaction. I already mentioned the program office, right? That's one group. And I tend to use an example like this if you've been in a lot of my trainings, but think of the IT department as a focus of dissatisfaction. And they're dissatisfied with the fact that the internet connection keeps dropping a couple of times a day or something, right? Something happens and it drops. And we sell a redundant internet connection, meaning if one drops, the other one's up and you never even know it drops, right? And so the IT department is dissatisfied with that. Partly they're dissatisfied because they don't want the technology to go down. Partly they're dissatisfied because the number of people who are complaining about they suck at their job, something, right? Hey, how come your internet keeps going down? Well, who are those people screaming at the IT department? That's the HR department, right? That's the logistics department. That's the soldiers in the field or something. These people are screaming, saying, how can we accomplish our mission or our part of the mission when you guys keep letting the internet connection drop down? And so what I want you to understand is that, yes, the IT department in this example is a focus of dissatisfaction. We can talk to them about it. But another consequence of this problem that they have is that they're influencing another focus of dissatisfaction, the HR department, the logistics department. So when you're building a list of who are the focuses of dissatisfaction at your target customer or related to your target opportunity, keep in mind, it's not just the primary focus of dissatisfaction, but it's also the other people who are suffering because of the challenges or the missing needs that the original focus of dissatisfaction has. Inside of large primes and small businesses, it's the same people who are the focuses of dissatisfaction: business developers and capture managers. And the reason I say this is because if they're looking for subcontractors to shore up their team, they have dissatisfaction or need around task areas. It could be something as simple as I must have a woman-owned small business on my team. That's, a large specific need. It could be I'm doing a whole building a whole new hospital and I need somebody who can build elevators. It's like, okay, well, there's a task area. And so they have that need. And these are important people to talk to, because the earlier you talk to them, the more you can talk to them about how you can help them with needs. And they've got it in their mind as they go forward. And as you have more meetings, you can also influence them and turn those subcontracting implied needs into explicit needs. Oh, you really need to work with us because we bring this to the table. I just wanted to take a quick second and let you know that we dropped the July directory of our small business specialists for federal agencies. So these are not small businesses. These are the small business professionals, small business specialists within federal agencies. Well over 1,000 names, numbers, and emails. We have well over 100 small business liaison officers from large primes. We just added 50 plus names that are new names into the directory. And we also updated, I think, about 100 people where we got updated information. Like in the Navy, we got one group in there alone. And so this directory is constantly being updated. You can go over and find it. Actually, now on the home page, there's a big old button that says download it, but you can find it under resources. And if you ever have questions about GovCon, quick questions you just want to shoot in, feel free to come to our website. Shoot us and ask me anything. It's open 24/7, and we'll respond pretty quickly as soon as we can. All right, let's wrap up with talking about focuses of power. So focuses of power are vital, right? That's when you really think about who they are or what they are, they're the ones who make the decisions. It all comes down to them. Your sales success is built through the activity that you do with focuses of receptivity and focuses of dissatisfaction. But focuses of power make the decision. They award the contract or they award the subcontract if you're going to be on their team, right? They make that decision for you to have success within their organization. As it relates to the sales activity that you do, focuses of power, I'm pointing out two purposes that they fill within your sales activity. The first one is they determine the acquisition strategy, right? So the acquisition strategy could be, hey, we're going to go on this contract vehicle, Oasis, Stars 3, etc. And so you want to be working with the focuses of power to influence that, right? The focuses of dissatisfaction will influence the focuses of power on the requirements, but it's your job to go in and influence the focus of power about which acquisition vehicle they use, which NAICS code they use, right? You have the ability to influence them. Influence does not mean make them. You're not going to make them do anything. But if you bring enough data and evidence on why they should use this NAICS code and not this NAICS code, they're going to go, that makes sense. I'll do it. I'm not doing it because Neil said. I'm doing it because the data and evidence supports what you're saying. And so you have this ability to work with them to determine the acquisition strategy as they do that. And the second main purpose that these focuses of power put in is they make the decision. They determine whether you can even compete, right? Separate from the awarding the contract, that final ultimate decision. If they choose to set this aside, woman-owned small business, then you can't compete. I mean, you can go try to get on a subcontracting team, but they could sit there and say you can't even come in. They can determine we don't even want to work with companies that are at certain levels. And so when you think about large primes, for example, no, if they're not at this level, we don't want them. So even at the focus of dissatisfaction or receptivity's liked you and is kind of champion, these focuses of power can influence whether you can even compete. And so you want to know that, and then you begin to try to influence their decisions around how you can compete. So the set aside, I said, for example, you can get a bunch of other firms. Let's say it's going women-owned small business. You want it to go hub zone, go get 10 other hub zones to all respond to the sources sought. And you're influencing the direction that they go on a set aside, for example. And then the typical focuses of power, as you can see here, in an agency, it's the contracting officer. Sometimes I find people don't know this, and I'm trying to never be surprised. I'm trying to remember what it was always like when I didn't know as much as I know today. I don't know everything, but I know everything I know today, right? But I just had another conversation with somebody, another customer in this past week, where they were talking about trying to talk with the focus of power, but they saw it as, and we were talking about 8A direct awards, right? And who's doing the direct awards. And they were going to talk to the program office. I'm like, the program office has nothing to do with it. The program office influences whether opportunities should be done in a certain direction. They might even be able to talk about funding, but the direct awards, especially at the end of the year, this feeding frenzy type stuff that happens, that's all the contracting officer. But either way, all through the year, the focus of power is the contracting officer. They're the ones who sign the contract. I've won multi-million-dollar contracts where the program office was arguing kind of against our approach, but they were wrong. So, but I was talking with the contracting officer. Go watch a video where I said I rejected a $5 million contract, and you'll see this story where basically I talked to the contracting officer about my concerns, and because of they were the focus of power, they said, "Look, I don't care what they say. You and I are the ones working together. I'm signing the contract. What's in the contract, what you said you will do, is what we will hold you to, and they have to accommodate to it, right?" And basically, they wanted to do it old way, and I'm doing it the new way. But it was such an eye opener for me to realize not only, yes, you're the focus of power because you sign it, but they literally are the focuses of power. One other group that I had in here is the selection board folks. These people are like one step below the signature. When an opportunity comes forward, especially if it's multi-million dollar, like I tend to play at much larger opportunities, you have a selection board, right? You have people looking at the pricing, you have people looking at the technical approach, management approach, whatever, right? You have people looking at the opportunity, whatever number of people. Those people are focuses of power in the sense that they are incredibly influential to the contracting officer's final decision. And so you want to begin to understand when you're building your list of people, who do we think is going to be on the selection board, right? It's rare that you'll ever know who's on the selection board, but you can begin to figure that out. One of the best ways, by the way, is to submit several proposals, do a debriefing, and see who shows up. That's a great way. Large prime contractors, it's really important for you to understand, like there's these VPs of sales or something. They'll decide whether they want to let a capture manager or business developer on their team even proceed with an opportunity, et cetera. And so you want to know who those people are, and you want to be asking your folks, hey, how are you influencing those people upstairs? But the capture managers and business developers are not the focus of power. It's that leadership team that meets every 2 or 3 weeks to say bid or no bid on opportunities. And in the small business, it's the owner. Hopefully we all know that, right? All right, so here's what I want you to remember, and here's what I want you to do from today's training. The first thing is to remember that when you're looking at people and you're talking with people, know what role, focus of receptivity, dissatisfaction, and power those people are serving in today, either holistically in a business development sense, or what role are they serving in today as it relates to this one opportunity we're chasing. So know what the role is, what hat they're wearing that day. And then here's the action. I have that July directory, right? Download it today. Don't wait another 20 minutes or something. Take action, download it, because the minute you download it, you're going to see 1,000+ names, numbers, and emails. It's a free directory. Download it. And then you can begin to do outreach starting on Monday, for example. Start reaching out to new people and growing. Just giving you a heads up that you can go to my LinkedIn profile, and on there, you'll find in the featured section a section about the training we had. So obviously you can watch replays, or not obviously, but you can watch replays. But in there you have upcoming training. And so we have all of next week's training already listed, and it's out there. One thing I did want to say is that if you're interested in going to the next level, especially if you're an 8A firm and you're looking kind of towards the end of the year or having a good start to 2024, reach out to me whenever you're ready through LinkedIn messaging. For the rest of us, I hope you have a good weekend, and I hope you remember that government contracting is not a secret, and neither is the chamber. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.